All right, this is going to be my support tier list for patch 13.5. To start things off, we have the champions based on their win rate from 13.4. I'm recording this the day before the patch drops, so this is the most accurate data that we have. This is 2 weeks worth of games played, and this is where all the champions finished at as far as their win rate goes. Not a whole lot of surprises here. This is kind of where I had a lot of champions ending up. Last patch had kind of the rise of the tanks and the downfall of a lot of the enchanter supports, or at least the range supports. So something like Karma, you're seeing a bit lower than usual. Seraphine, Lulu, a bit lower than usual. There were a few notable buffs, some of which were a lot stronger than I expected. Senna and Thresh really rose up this patch. I thought the changes were going to be somewhat good. I didn't think they were going to be nearly as good as they actually were. There are also changes to Alistar last patch, which bumped them up like 1% from like 49 to 50. But overall, he's not in that great of a spot. Some of these supports on this list, you have to take into consideration that their pick rate is really, really low. So, one example off the top of my head, for example, is going to be who can we look at here? Let's look at the Vel'Koz, for example. Vel'Koz technically here is in the second strongest tier because D2 plus he's at a 52% win rate. But there's a lot of Vel'Koz mains out there. So one tricks, for example, will really boost up a champion's win rate, especially when Vel'Koz only has a 1.64% pick rate. So take that with a grain of salt. There are some champions on here like Rakan, Annie, and Blitzcrank. Rakan at a 13% pick rate, Annie at a 7, and Blitzcrank at an 8% pick rate. So these three champions really, really strong at the moment and have a really high pick rate. So there's a large sample size to be able to back that up. A couple other ones worth mentioning here. Rakan and Rel are both really, really strong. I've played some Tarek recently. I feel like Tarek is in a really good spot, but both of these champions sitting at a 2% pick rate and lower. So these top three, by far the best, 54% win rate with a high play rate. Some of the champions down here, not the same case. However, I would say Tarek, Thresh, high enough play rate. Same thing with Bard, high enough play rate that those champions are pretty justified being up here. If I had to give my top 5 supports for this patch, it would probably be those three: Rakan, Andy, Blitz, Tarek, Thresh. Well, I guess top 6, huh? And then Senna as well. So those are how the champions finished last patch. A lot of changes from this last patch as far as the support changes: the rise of tank, the fall of range supports. This patch, not nearly as exciting. We have a couple changes that we could probably expect. No items directed towards them. As far as nerfs go, nothing too crazy here. This is actually intended to be a nerf towards Twitch support. Let me go ahead and look up Twitch on my other monitor. Has a 2% pick rate, a 50% play rate. So honestly, I don't even have Twitch on here because I didn't consider him to be a support really. 2% pick rate, not a great win rate, and they're nerfing him. They must see something that we don't. Didn't have him in here before. He was average before according to win rate. That's going to pretty much take him out of support entirely. They're nerfing the AP on him. So again, they know something that we don't, but don't even have him on the list, so we're going to ignore that one. As far as buffs go, no changes here for supports, and then the only thing that they are adjusting is going to be Ashe and Yuumi. Ashe, honestly, let's scroll down to Ashe first. Ashe, I just see this as a nerf. Last patch, they changed Thresh. They called it an adjustment, and it ended up being quite an obvious buff. I think that's the same case here. Ashe is getting some changes, but it seems to me to be an obvious nerf. She's really, really dominating pro play. We're seeing her quite a bit as ADC and as a support. These changes as a whole just seem like a nerf to me, especially for support because higher mana Q, or let's see, Q mana cost decrease. Okay, excuse me, not in the Q. W damage decrease, R cooldown increase. So they're getting rid of some of her utility, and her W and her R. Those are the two things that you need the most in order to play her as a support. They are changing her Q a little bit, so I believe now her Q, instead of having to like auto a few times before you can use it, now you can just use it. Don't know why that was ever a mechanic to begin with, but this is going to direct more of her focus to ADC rather than to support. So right off the rip, let's take a look. We have Ashe in 51%. I believe after this change, Ashe is no longer going to be a meta support. I think she'll be much better as an ADC, but having the utility be hurt that much, I feel like she's not going to be played as a support anymore. So I think these changes are big enough, dropping her from 50 all the way to not meta. If I were to have to put her somewhere in here, probably in week or on the bench. But more than anything, I just think she's not going to really be a meta support in 13.5. The other change is one that I'm actually pretty hopeful for. This is the Yuumi rework. I'm not going to go too in depth on it because I made a whole video where I break this down. Check it out on my YouTube channel. You won't have to scroll too far behind or too far back because I uploaded it about a week ago. Yuumi, though, overall, they think that she's just very frustrating to play against. Did not have a very healthy kit. Too strong in pro play. They're changing her in a way that she's going to be friendly for newcomers and overall not super frustrating to play up against. It's a complete overhaul of the rework, but I think their main goal, just making her be simple and easy to use for beginners while not being frustrating. She is not going to be overpowered. I think, honestly, she'll probably end up weak. She'll probably be somewhere similar to like Karma, Nami, Seraphine, Lulu. So right in between 50, 49%. Don't have super high hopes as far as her being good in solo queue, but I don't think that's an issue because she's been such an issue in the past that I think it's okay for her not to be super popular. I thought she was dead already. She was. This is a complete rework, though. So she was at a 47 or lower percent win rate. Let me go ahead again on my second monitor. We'll look this up. 41% win rate, actually. So yeah, completely dead. This rework is going to make her relevant again. They gutted her because her current kit is not healthy for the game. Her new kit will be healthier for the game, but they don't want her to be as crazy as she was before. So I have her between Seraphine, Lulu, Nami, Karma, somewhere in these enchanters. I'll just put it safe. I'll put her at the bottom here. Other than that, those are all the changes for support in this upcoming patch. Not a lot changing. Just the Twitch, the Yuumi, and the Ashe changes. So overall, what you guys can continue to do is continue to abuse the champions that I had already mentioned. Rakan, Annie, Blitzcrank, 54% win rate or higher with a very large sample size. So these are going to be your top 3 supports for this next patch. Taric and Rel, really strong but have a low pick rate. Thresh, much stronger after the buffs, stronger than I expected him to be, but still always going to be a champion that is pretty difficult, so better for higher elo players, worse for lower ranked players. Senna, again, another one of those champions that I thought the buffs were going to help, but I didn't think they were going to be nearly as helpful as they actually were. Really like Senna in this patch as well. Those are going to be my top 6. Maokai isn't actually as bad as I thought he was going to be. They reduced a lot of his damage in the last patch. He's still a viable support as a tank, but the pick rate isn't there to support it. So Taric, Rel, Maokai don't have that high of a pick rate to support it. Same thing with Vel'Koz. Pyke and Bard have a high enough pick rate that I can justify them being here. But overall, I think they're a little bit outclassed. Rakan, Annie, Blitzcrank, top 3. After that, probably Senna and Thresh just because of the pick rate supporting it. The rest of them all still really good, but take it with a grain of salt because the pick rate isn't there to support it. Overall, not a whole lot of changes, so you guys can expect to play the same champions next patch. Abuse these champions. I know I will. I've been playing mainly Rakan and Annie on my main account, having a lot of success climbing there. I'll go ahead and show you guys. You guys can continue to abuse these the same way I'm abusing these champions. I would assume that by next patch, we will see some nerfs to both Annie and Rakan, so abuse them while you can. But that's all I got for patch 13.5. Pretty short tier list, pretty short video, but that's all that there is for this patch.